Well, hi everyone, and welcome to Coffee with Craig. And this is where we always do the predictions mainly about the future of the world. We talk about current events, we talk about what's happening in the world, and even how we can change things. Because as spiritually minded people, hopefully, our power of the will can help to shift events and move things in a better direction somehow. Now, let me just explain what this one is today for you. So, this is a live show. And already I've got quite a few of you coming in. I can see you on the side of my screen as a sort of a live feed. And I'm going to do this show in kind of two parts, because the first part, I'm going to put up my earlier prediction. That is the little clips you might have seen in the big video. They're about 10 minutes or so. So you watch that again. Some of you might have already seen that before, but I'll put your comments up as we're going with that too, in case you've got any comments. And I also ask you all to prepare some questions and put them in the chat box, because I can highlight those, I can star them and bring them on a little later on, as well as your live questions as we start to interact with each other. Now, I put the prepared question, I put the pre-record up in a moment, which you'll see. But then the second part, I want to do it more like a bit more live type of style of clairvoyance, because as the show is showing in the background, I'm going to tune in. And so when you ask me a question, in a way, it kind of forces my clairvoyance. It kind of forces my clairvoyance to give an answer. It's a bit like if you stood up on a stage and you had to sing, you go, oh, I can't do it, but then you force it and you have to do it, So it's a bit like that. It kind of, it's a hard way to work actually, but it kind of pressurizes me into giving responses. So so guys, if you've got your questions, have a thought of the questions of how you can help to prod my unconscious mind, and I'll see what I can pick up from what obviously a lot of this stuff I would have already had my thoughts during my meditations that I've been doing again over the last few days just on the topic, but then we'll get your insights as well and your comments as well, and should be fun, hopefully. So okay, so welcome to Coffee with Craig. So now I'm going to look at the UK and give you some predictions about the UK. So let's have the bit of coffee first. It's been a long haul, this one. Right, okay, for the UK. I see quite a difficult period ahead for the UK, particularly economically. The hoped for growth that Britain has been wanting, I just don't feel it's going to materialise. The Labour government here has been borrowing money left, right and centre, from using money from pension plans, using money from tax, trying to get a big pot of money together. But I feel that it's not going to work out, because that money I'm seeing will all go to wage settlements. A large part will go to pay settlements and things like this. So money that's put into for example, into the National Health Service, for example, gets absorbed into just pay packets. And I'm seeing swelling pay packets for the UK. So unfortunately, with the UK, I'm seeing lots of companies going into liquidation in the UK. I'm seeing farm closures, particularly will cause food shortages. And I'm seeing many promising IT startups leaving the UK. And the government wants to put money into those things, but I'm seeing a lot of very promising startups leaving the UK. The entrepreneurial spirit of the UK is being suffocated by too much of the wrong sort of government involvement. So I also sense with the UK, I feel that there's going to be a problem with inflation. We've already had problems with inflation. It's been kept more or less under control. But I'm seeing again that return to those periods where inflation runs out of hand and gets problematic. So I'm seeing too much money spent on wages, on wage rises, and this promised growth that they've been talked about. I don't see it happening. I don't see us being in a boom period. We might get temporary booms. Yes, we might get, because you put a lot of money into the economy suddenly and you'll get the illusion of a boom. But the idea of longer term growth, I think, is going to fall apart, is my feeling. I'm sensing and seeing it falling apart. I'm not seeing a booming UK economy. But saying that, there is also some good news with it as well, because I sense that the USA is not going to put tariffs on the UK. It's going to take away tariffs. So compared to what's happening in Europe, maybe the UK does have a chance with its export policies. And this will help the UK because in some respects we'll have the best of both worlds when it comes to exports, because Starmer will build some bridges with Europe. Worryingly, I feel, because the hidden agenda here is that Britain wants to go back into Europe. They all want to be back into Europe, but we dare not say it. And at the same time, we've got the trade deal possibly that I feel is going to come with America. I feel America's going to say, okay, there's no tariffs. Trump's going to say no tariffs with Britain, or limited tariffs with Britain, but we'll do a deal which will be import-export deal. So if Britain wants to be led by growth into a growth market, it has to export, and to do that, it has to manufacture. So that's the way I feel it's going to go. We're going to go back to a bit more of the traditional manufacturing industries, which might sacrifice some of our high-tech industries, where only so much money to go so far. But there's going to be problems still with businesses being able to develop and build new business, and the small business and the farming businesses that are run by individuals are going to struggle. I see Trump will visit the UK and will visit King Charles, and this will happen in 2025, I feel, because it is something that will come quite quickly, and give an opportunity for the UK to be able to make some trade deals as well with America. So there's opportunities there, and the future is not completely set. Although I see a kind of a bit of a dismal path ahead. I see lots of big mistakes made, and big mistakes. So Stalinist type of ideas of how you're going to transform a country can often go wrong. So I see there's a lot of problems, but there's also a lot of opportunities here, particularly with America. And even Britain one day, far into the future, but I feel one day Britain will even be absorbed into America. America and Britain will become one country in a long way into the future, not round now, but I'm seeing that a long way into the future, that Britain and America will become one nation again. In fact, I've talked before about this, how we're looking far ahead. English-speaking countries of the world will form an amalgamation in the centuries to head. But anyway, coming back to the present time, I predict that Trump will be coming to see King Charles in 2025. And although I predicted I saw the troubles with King Charles, because I said he'd have a short reign at the time of his coronation, you remember, and immediately afterwards we had the cancer scare. But I feel as if, I saw him having a short reign, but I certainly feel he was going to make a good recovery in 2025, actually. And the power of the will is greater than the power of fate. And this is something I think we should always remember when we're making predictions, or anybody makes a prediction, or even a doctor gives you a prediction of something. Even, the power of the mind is stronger than the body, and it's stronger than fate. And I think it's important to remember always to send healing thoughts to people like King Charles and Kate and the rest of them, and people that are struggling, and for all people, and even to our politicians, even to our enemies, we should send thoughts of positivity and love if we can, because that is how we will ultimately heal the world. But I'm going off. So I see a lot of strikes. I see the problem being ahead with the UK. I'm seeing strikes. So I'm seeing crippling strikes in the public sector, even though money's already been thrown into the public sector for wage increases. But I'm seeing people getting greedy, and I'm seeing public sector. I'm seeing transportation. I'm seeing transportation come to a standstill. There's going to be lots of rail strikes, lots of shipping strikes, lots of all sorts of things that create the mobility in the UK. Problems with that, possibly things with petrol as well, something where I feel our ability to get around is stopped. Seeing something like that, I saw roads at a standstill, trains at a standstill. There's some form of everything at a standstill, and that seems to be because of people's greed, I feel, with this. So I saw it on the airports as well, and I also saw people carrying NHS banners as well. So I thought we were getting over that, but I saw NHS banners being carried again. So I feel we're going to have another wage demand, perhaps from hospital workers. And I also felt there would be, on the NHS sort of thing, I also saw we had a problem in the past about blood contamination, and I'm seeing there's some problem like that of some sort. I saw something with blood contamination, something where blood is not quite right. And I saw empty blood vials. So it's like, is there a shortage? Maybe has something gone wrong with the supply of blood? And is there a shortage of blood? That was something I saw when I was trying to sort of pick up NHS. I saw, oh, there's something here going wrong with it. Freezer's gone wrong, something like that. Something went wrong in that. Okay, so let's hope we can get through that as well. As I say, with all things, we can change the future. But perhaps forewarned, perhaps someone hears this from the hospitals and has a look at those things. Now, the Labour government are going to announce a massive building programme. That's not been said yet. This is going to be in one of their budgets. They're going to announce a huge building programme throughout the UK. They talked about infrastructure already, but I'm seeing houses. I'm seeing affordable housing. In a way, I think they're doing this as well because it will be like a way to solve the immigration problem. Just give them all houses, get people into houses, get roofs over people's heads, and they stop complaining. How we're going to pay for that is going to be paid for over future generations, because I'm seeing big borrowing going on to do that. We've had a lot of borrowing already. There's more and more to come. We're going to see a government spending money to bring this illusionary idea that we can stimulate economy by just borrowing money and spending it. It will give short-term gains but long-term crisis. So I'm seeing this as bringing about lots of problems for people, particularly when it comes to inflation. I'm seeing booming inflation in the UK. This will be the problem economically in the UK, all this inflation going on, which is going to create a lot of problems. So interest rates are dropping as I make this prediction, as it were, here in the UK, but they will increase in 2025. It's going to be very difficult for people buying homes again, worse than ever, even though there's a influx and a building of property. We can't build them quick enough, and there's a crisis in the housing industry because people can't get the money. They haven't got the money. They want the wages. It's a kind of a impossible situation I'm seeing here that's going to be very hard to solve. And there's also going to be many more tax increases ahead. We've seen a lot already. They're going to keep going and keep going. And I see the Bank of England also. I saw the Bank of England, and I feel that they're going to sell government securities to reduce the money supply. I'm seeing that happening in the city. So quite a lot of economic problems ahead, I feel. A lot of it due to crazy thinking is what I'm seeing with here. Also, there's secrets there as well with the Labour government. I sense that they're going to try to really get us to rejoin Europe. They're saying, oh, we're going to try to make things better. We're going to try to build trade with Europe. But there's an agenda. I sense they've been talking behind the scenes, particularly with the French, that they were going to, we'll find our way back into Europe. Don't worry. It might take a few years, but we'll get people on our side. We're going to try to get back into Europe. So let's make a few deals now to make it easier for us to rejoin Europe. We're being cheated in the background with that. And I feel this is going to be something that's going to be exposed in a big way. They're going to find something that's going to be revealed about secret conversations. Maybe it's a recording or something that someone pops into the scene to say, look, there's Starmer talking to Macron or something like that. There's something going somewhere along the line. There's something revealed about that. So that's going to be a big scandal that's going to be revealed in the 2024. And also, talking of scandal, there's going to be a lot revealed about Keir Starmer. I see, when I look at him as a man and I try to tune into him as a person, I just feel secrets. There's big secrets in his past and in his life, and perhaps even in his sexual life of some sort. Has there been something going on in the background? Is he possibly bisexual? I just get something that I don't feel I've revealed everything. Is there something? There's a big scandal going to be blowing about this. Something to do with what he's done in the past. Maybe there's a love child somewhere. Maybe he's had, has he been up to something that he's not made public? I mean, I'm not saying it's, if he's bisexual, there's anything necessarily shocking or wrong about that, but to hiding it and putting up a false image is another thing. So there's something going to blow up about Keir Starmer, and I can't see him in power. I feel he's going to be pulled out of power. He's become quite unpopular quite quickly, because here in the UK, those that are joining us from America and things, we had a vote here, and the Labour vote didn't increase much, but it didn't increase at all. In fact, it had the same number of votes, but the opposition vote got split between Nigel Farage and the Conservatives. And so they're in power really on kind of a minority of the voters in many respects. And those that did vote him are becoming very disenchanted over what's been happening. But Starmer's unpopularity is going to just increase and increase and increase. And once we get this problem revealed, and what was going on really with Lord Ali, who I've met Lord Ali. I know him in a loose sort of way from when we were on the Big Breakfast, and he's a lovely man, lovely man. But something's been going on there much more than what's going on. Has there been some backhander going on, some corruption of some sort that's about to be exposed? And does he know something about Keir Starmer that the rest of us don't? So I'm seeing him taken out of power. I'm seeing Keir Starmer taken out of power, and temporarily, it happened before, it happened again. Yvette Cooper steps in to the frame as a temporary prime minister. And there will be calls for her immediate resignation as well, because of her weak stance on immigration. So she'll be in for a short time and pulled out. And then what happens after that, I'm not quite sure. I'll have to look at that as the year progresses. But there's something going to happen there where we're going to get a big change in Keir Starmer. That doesn't mean to say the Labour government are pulled out of power, but they're going to be very, very weak because of this. So that's some of the things I'm seeing. So let's look at some of the other things I've got written down here, because I'm going off. A new underage knife crimes law will be introduced. This is something that's likely, I think, if we look at the news. But this is something I was feeling, because knife crime is a terrible, terrible thing. And it's linked so much in nowadays with schools. And it's also gangs. We're getting a lot of gangs, drug gangs carrying knives, young people carrying knives. It's cool to have knives. So I feel there's going to be some very big moves to try to, I mean, it's already happening as I speak, actually, but there's going to be some big moves to try to get knives off the streets. and much more restrictions on that type of thing, particularly within schools. And I feel that there's going to be new legislation brought in to relook at mental health in schools. There's going to be something that's happened, I feel, where there's going to be less of this, if we less of this sort of Ofsted type of thing where reports are published to rank a school. And when those rankings are sometimes skewered, because if we got a pupil that's misbehaving, well, we just exclude them from school, and that way we can exclude them from the figures. So we're pushing out a lot of kids that have mental health problems, making them work from home and pushing them out of the system just so we can get our ranking higher. So I see all that being overhauled, and that's a good thing that I feel the government are going to do with that. They're going to get in there and they're going to start looking properly at mental health issues and restrictions also upon social media exposure for young children. A huge debate going to be in the air about that, like Musk has already alerted people to, about the idea of censorship of people on Facebook. The Labour government are already inclined to be rule makers. Keir Starmer is a rule maker, so he's a regulator. He likes to bring in regulations, and there's going to be a lot of upset about the new regulations coming in for things like this, YouTube, things like Facebook, things like TikTok, and the rest of it. I'm seeing a big moves to regulate the internet in the UK. It'll backfire, and it'll backfire in a big way. We've got the new leader of the Conservatives, Kemi Badenoch. I see she's going to go too. I think my feeling when I've looked at her and I've tuned into her and I get the sense with her she's going to be quite a powerful person once she's let loose on the House of Commons. I feel that she'll be able to sort of put forward popular policies, and I feel she'll do quite well to begin with, but I can't see her continuing, because the Tories, I feel, are going to lose even more votes in the way ahead. So she's not going to be able to bring back the Tory party onto the stage and give the power back to the Tories again. What do you think? Put your comments. But I'm just seeing her go on. I felt as if she makes a good start, but is pulled out of power. So the Tories haven't sorted things out. They haven't listened to what voters are saying. And we're going to see particularly a rise in the Reform Party politically again. And they're going to make some very, very significant gains in the local elections. And what I saw in particular with them and Farage and his lot is I saw them taking lots of seats, of most obscurely perhaps, in Scotland. And I saw what I saw actually for this. I saw a blue thistle. When I was tuning in, I saw a blue thistle. I thought, what the hell's that all about? And I thought, blue, Tory, it's more associated with Tories. But then I thought, no, I felt Farage with this. So I think they're going to take a whole load of seats there, maybe up to 15 seats in Scotland. And Scotland, again, is going to be, the Scots are going to steer the UK ship a little bit with this in a completely different way than they expected before. And you know what? I see Boris Johnson leaving the Tories and joining Reform. There'll be others following him, but as a big politician of some sort is going to move. And I feel it's Boris Johnson. Maybe I'm wrong, there's someone else. Maybe there's someone else that's going to move that's big, but I found it was the top, ex-prime minister moving to the Reform. And let's see if that happens. But I feel we're going to get some big changes. They're partly triggered by this whole idea of the local elections. But I feel the Tories are going to have to really watch things, because I feel Reform's going to be a major, major challenger when we come to the next elections in the years to come. And much as I dislike the BBC, I've seen things happening with the BBC, and I'm feeling the BBC are going to have a new streaming service. There's going to be something that's going to compete with Netflix. it's going to be streamlined as well, the BBC. They're going to restructure everything. So less perhaps of the local programs, less perhaps of the multiple channels. I'm seeing something happening where the BBC is restructured in a completely new form. And it's going to be new programs, big scale programs coming out, like the idea I saw when I was trying to tune into this. I saw like the Game of Thrones, and I thought, well, could the BBC create something as spectacular as that? And I think there's going to be a bit of a restructure in the BBC, which hopefully will get it away from its wokey sort of agenda and its skewered news agendas, and maybe will be something there that's happening. I feel as if there's going to be big disruptions with more sexual predators exposed within BBC, more coming to light. It's so easy to cover things up in the BBC. It's so easy to, you can hide Rolf Harris, you can hide Jimmy Savile and Gary Glitter and others. And I think there's more that's not been seen and still going on. So there's going to be there's going to be a big exposure, and I feel there's going to be, the BBC is going to be rocked in 2025 somehow, and I see it being re-looked at. And maybe it's only the Labour government that can put that in place, because if it was a right-wing government like the Tories or Reform, they'd say it was political interference. But because it's already a left-wing organisation in the BBC, I feel that actually the Labour government will be able to reform the BBC in a better way, just as really only Labour can reform the NHS, and only Labour can reform the welfare, because it's their domain in a way. So I'm seeing those things getting good reforms in the way ahead, but also a lot of crackpot stuff happening as well. I think the reason most older people tend to vote more right-wing actually is because they've seen Labour governments in the past, and younger people see an optimistic Labour government come in and then see what havoc people like Tony Blair could have wrecked the country with, and people like Callaghan and others wrecked things, and then you think, well, never again. But now we've had the same problem with what happened with the Tories, didn't we? So, and they were just as bad a lot in the end. So maybe there's something new, because I think reform's going to come to the fore in 2025, and we're going to see a complete shift in British politics. Okay, I'm sure there's a million and one things I could talk about here, but we'll save that for the more detailed videos where we'd go live later with these again. Okay, so that's the UK. Hi everyone. Coming up are a few short clips from my online spiritual workshops. She's going woohoo! Because I feel that it's about time. It's like, she tells me you're also quite interested in astrology.
Yes, I'm doing astrology. Yes, exactly.
Studying astrology. Yes, she had a habit of rubbing her hands like this, didn't she too? Was this a habit she had all the time? She'd go get her doing that, and like to do this as well with things. So she's there, and although she's a comfortable build lady, I feel that she would like to jump or dance around quite a lot. I don't know. I'm seeing her bouncing around. So she was quite a big lady, but very agile.
Yeah, she did that all the time. Oh. Goodness,
so I just see her there, though. So she's just seeing some Green Shield stamps, but she was absolutely fanatic about those. And
We've been talking about Green Shield.
You were talking about it. There we go. I knew there was something specially significant about the Green Shield stamps. Have you still got a pair of shoes or an item of clothing of his still?
I have a jacket.
Okay, you still got his jacket, and this is going back a long time. This is,
and a he just says time.
You have very vivid dreams, I want to say as well, because she's saying to me that you dream of her and you've had very vivid dreams, and she says you have a dream of being left alone as well. There's been a dreams of being left alone, of being left on a street or something. It looks like I've been left somewhere, I can't get the car. I've got something like this. She's telling me about your dreams. She says that that is partly emotional, but it's this like a feeling of abandonment. When I do a reading, when it's finished, I forget it.
It just blew me. That reading just blew me. I mean, I was shocked. It really. I mean, thank you so much, Craig. Because you brought so much of evidential, that proof that was so needed. I think so. I think it's really mind blowing what you do.
Yeah, thank you. Yeah, well, it's not me. It's the spirit world. But I've got quite a sudden passing with her, like it's something like an accident.
But yes, I do know
Just be the
somebody.
person with her. Was this a car accident?
Yes, yes,
Okay.
that's
And
yeah, that's it.
and have
Wow.
I hit my head in the car accident? Because I feel my head's either hit the steering wheel or hit the windscreen, because I feel it's my head that was damaged from this.
She hit the driver. She was coming back late night, and the driver fell asleep at the wheel and
Okay.
hit a boulders like barriers in the road.
Yeah.
So it could well
So
be.
it's really sort of head on then, isn't it? So it's
Well done.
So
Yeah,
I've got
very
so that's who
specific.
she is.
I feel very strongly that I would like to give a testimonial. Some of our patrons just now talked about the accuracy. For me, some of it was just mind-blowing. Even today, I mean, the friend that you picked through and the connections, but I've had even more accurate than that. I mean, I've had incredible evidence, which...
Sheila, I totally agree with you. I mean,
Yes.
it was amazing. I mean, I didn't even share a photograph. My mother was not on any social media,
Yeah,
but he really channeled and he did a fantastic job. I mean, I
yeah.
was blown. I was just blown.
It's evidence Craig has given me. I came running down to tell my mother. I can't.
Yeah,
Sorry, Craig, you're going to blush. It's absolutely incredible, the evidence that I got.
yeah, it was like mind blowing, is all I can
Yeah.
say.
Well, here we are again, live again. So thank you for sitting through that. For the guys that have seen it before, thank you for coming back. We're going to make some more predictions now, though, because that clip you saw there came from the original video I put up recently, which is getting nearly 500,000 hits, or no, 250,000 hits at the moment in the last week. So it's very popular. So we're going to talk today a bit more about some of the other stuff that I see, and I'll try to sort of just see if I can pick up some of the time as we're talking, because your questions now will help me with the clairvoyance, as it were. And I've already starred some, but you're welcome to keep putting questions in now as well. So one of the things I was seeing, like today, I've been tuning in ready for this, and I saw I saw a huge factory fire. Now, I couldn't work out because it looked like it had chimneys. But to me, it could have been oil based, because there seemed to be such a lot of smoke with this. And, there was also a feeling with this that there was an aeroplane involved with it. So are we going to see an air crash of some sort happening here in the UK? And is that going to hit a facility of some sort, such as a factory? So this is something this is kind of away from sort of the normal things you might be able to sort of anticipate, possibly, because if you see the news, obviously it influences your thoughts. But there's nothing like that out there. And it seemed very, very odd to me. And the feeling is, I felt as if this was one of many, because I saw a number of airplanes coming down. So is Britain going to get its own 9/11? Or is there some form of a hit or attack on our airplanes, on maybe on passenger flights or even freight flights? Because I also had, at the similar time, I was also seeing this image of helicopters on fire as well. So now, don't get too alarmed when I make some of these predictions, because sometimes they become very exaggerated in my own mind, because I'll see something and it's like in a dream. It will exaggerate it to try to push the information to you, just like a dream exaggerates information. But that's what I saw, and I feel that there may be something like that. Now, in the background, we have, of course, got things going on with Russia in the background here, haven't we, in the UK at the moment? And I'm not sure if that relates to that. But I was getting the feeling also that we're going to see quite some substantial hidden attacks from Russia. You see, if something like that happened, how Could we not? How could we pin our finger on people? Supposing that was done by some form of attack on the emission controls or something like that, you know, flight controls and things like that, we'd never be able to prove it. And particularly with North Korea getting involved with hacking, I feel that we're going to get something that's going to cause some major hit like that, which is going to create quite an international incident. And on the topic of Russia as well, I was also you know, I do feel that Trump is going to sort it out with Ukraine. And I say sort it out in apostrophes because I don't see it, like I've said in my Ukraine predictions, I see a second war in Ukraine. I see it'll settle down, but it'll fire up again. It'll flare up again. So I don't see a permanent solution yet. But if there is a land deal done and America decides to pull out of its support of Ukraine, so basically say no money, no nothing going on, I felt I saw British troops in there. I saw British troops and I saw French troops, but no Germans. So I feel as if there was like a peacekeeping mission put in there, something to keep the lid on it. And this I feel could run out of control quite a lot as well. So that's one of the things I saw here. And we've had some drones flying over the Britain at the moment, which are unaccounted for. And my thoughts are that they may have something to do with an undercover terror attack being done by Russia, but we will find it hard to put our finger on. They'll pay other people to do their dirty work, just like Iran does, pays other people to do their dirty work. And I also had a feeling as if there was like a rebirth of, I was seeing it like Northern Ireland and the terrorism that happened in Northern Ireland, as if it's like we say this was done by the IRA. You know, we don't really have an IRA problem like we had before, but it's like this is done by the new IRA or something. False flag terrorist attacks. And I felt that would happen in Britain. And in fact, I've said before also that I felt Britain would have some issues with power. And maybe this is something connected with this. Maybe we're going to have a hit to the power of the country, because I saw Britain in blackouts. So there could be blackouts. Now we don't, you know, I mean, I don't know whether windmills could get us through a very harsh winter. I'm sure they could, perhaps, but I felt as if we had some fuel crisis here, or something happening to the infrastructure. Now, I'll just give you a couple of other odd ones as well, because another one I saw, I had a strange feeling about. There's a program on television that I hate. Jane quite likes, I think. Come Dancing, the one where they do the dancing stuff, and I felt as if there's going to be a big. It's very clean. It's very sweet and clean. It's all nice stuff for everybody, you know. But I had a feeling there was going to be some horrible scandal associated with it, with one of the contestants or something. I saw something where there's an allegations of some sort, possibly even linked with something like drugs or something. But and that would be most unexpected, actually, if you've ever seen the show. It's Whiter Than White, but I get a feeling there's something was odd happening with there. And another odd one that I saw when I was doing my meditations earlier too is I saw a flock of birds and I felt them fall from the sky. A whole big flock of birds that just fell from the sky. Now, I don't know what that's causing that, or is that kind of symbolic, perhaps? Is that symbolic? Maybe another bird flu epidemic, because there's been talk a little bit about that. But I saw this vision of like all the flocks of starlings that fly around the sky, and then boom, this all collapsed all in one go. Or was there something else that caused that? Right. So that's one of my other unusual thoughts that I was seeing coming up. Now, this will be much more random than my other pre-recorded piece, because that was much more structured. But I'll talk about some of the other things, and I'm also going to take some of your questions too, because I have starved some of your questions. I think we'll go for a couple of the questions first off. Okay, there's one interesting. let me just read it. Do you see the UK going down the road with online censorship? Now, that's an interesting one, because I have commented on that already, haven't I? But I have very strong feelings that we're going to get some very serious censorship of what's going on. People that are outspoken in any contradictory way to the sort of very left-wing agenda we have in politics at the moment. I mean, Keir Starmer seemed to have a personal dislike to Musk, and almost like, we're going to get you guys, we're going to shut your platforms down. And I feel there's going to be some very serious problems with that. I just see this comment coming in here. What's this one? Sorry, I just saw it coming in. Your Japanese friend Okoyaki is on trial. He's a well-known YouTube star with 1.3 million views. As a fan, I'm worried. I'm not sure if he's the same guy whose channel I went on that time, because I forget his name now. But you see, it's happening around the world. We're getting a lot of clampdowns, aren't we, on YouTubers, because these people with a very strong sort of Soviet sort of agenda, like Keir Starmer, very left wing, that they love making rules, they love clamping down, they love making rules and regulations. And the problem is with YouTube, like you guys here, we can't sort of have pre-made questions like they do on Question Time on BBC and things like that, where it's all sanitized and every question's been rehearsed in advance. Spontaneous questions are great because they often reveal the truth, don't they? And the X and YouTube and other platforms have a great way of stirring things up. And I feel there's going to be a lot more clampdowns with that, and that worries me a great deal with the way things are going with that, and I feel a great deal more unrest in the UK over the coming year and beyond, because I feel some very serious stuff happening in the UK. One of the other things I saw too, and I couldn't see who it was, but I felt, just as Trump had an attack on him, I felt, and we haven't had an assassination of a prime minister or anything since, what was his name? Perville or something. But I don't think it's necessarily on the prime minister. But I saw a politician wounded, shot, and it felt like a gun. I know we get a lot of knife crime here in the UK, but I felt there was something like that. It was like a gun or a knife crime, or even like Farage had the milkshake thrown at him and could have been some acid in it or something. I felt there was something like that. Now, I don't know who, not necessarily Farage, but I feel somebody, a politician, there's going to be something, a big scandal of some sort, because I saw this very strong when I was tuning in for this today, and it felt very concerning to me, that one. So I just add that to the mix there. So this whole censorship idea, very dangerous for the world, I think, the whole idea of having censorship, because we need freedom of speech, don't we? It's very important. That's kind of off topic. It's not necessarily UK, but I have just spoken about my feelings of engagement of the UK in the Ukraine, and it's like at the moment it's a scramble. This is kind of a little bit off topic. It's more American based. We're going to do some more stuff on America, but I noticed how Biden was really eager to jump in and claim some praise over the whole idea of what was going on in the Middle East. And could he be also arming Ukraine to the teeth? I don't see nuclear weapons going in there, but I feel as if they've laid some traps for Trump, really, because it will make it much harder for him to negotiate a peace. If that's what he does, I feel he will negotiate a peace. He'll try to do it, certainly, but the more arms that Ukraine have, the harder it will be to come to a deal, really. So, I'm not on either side with what should happen there. I don't think Russia should have gone into Ukraine, certainly not. But then peace is necessary. And how long can that war drag on? Wars eventually have to come to a compromise. Oh, that's quite an interesting one. And I saw one come in on the patrons pages about that earlier on. Hi, Craig. Please, can I ask if you have any predictions on Agenda 30? Now, Agenda 30 is all about trying to, by 2030, particularly try to get ourselves in a position, both culturally and society-wise, and also get to net zero, in particularly with the power and things like that. And I can't see power working, actually. Like I said, I see blackouts ahead. I feel that our whole dependence and determination to try to get to net zero and so forth is gonna fail. I feel it's going to fail in the UK, and I feel, and already as I'm speaking, I mentioned before about industrial problems here in the UK, and I also said in my European one about the car industry and Germany and that also getting under problems. The whole car industry is in serious trouble at the moment here in the UK, for example. So going over to electric cars is going to be a very, very difficult thing for us to do. And we're going to see, we see in Luton possibly closing down. It looks like it will close down. And there's just too expensive electric cars for most people. They're not good on battery life. That people worry about reliability with them. But I was seeing here something that I felt that the government are going to bring in some rules or some incentives to have completely electric public transport, not necessarily the railways. Electrification of the railways I wasn't quite sure on, but I felt as if there was a move to bring in electric vehicles for, you know, coaches and buses and trams, and even, and Musk would be the one for this, but whether Starmer allows this, the small car movements of people, electric. It's the only way that you can boost the industry, is by putting some money into it to say, okay, people don't want to buy electric cars, so let's give them electric transport. Let's give them electric public transport. So I saw that coming in. And how's that to be paid for? Because I also saw coming in tolls on motorways. Those like we have in when I go to Italy and that, there's always you have to pay to go on a motorway. And I'm seeing tolls on motorways with free entry for electric vehicles, but tolls on petrol and diesel vehicles. So unfortunately, that's something I see coming in. Labour says it will not have any more big tax rises. Don't you believe that for a moment? There's going to be huge tax rises ahead. In fact, I see VAT going up too in the future in 2025. It'll be this year, I feel. We won't get the growth that we're expecting from this. We'll get a temporary boost. I've said that earlier. We'll get a temporary boost, but it won't be sustained. And although the markets haven't panicked as they did with Liz Truss, I feel that eventually the markets are going to start panicking, because we're going to see more and more industries going to the wall, which I said earlier in the first part, in the pre-recorded part, you remember. But I'm seeing that happening more and more. And I'm seeing Keir Starmer moving much, much more to moving much more over to Europe, and not really doing a proper deal with USA. You know, I feel he will do something with the USA, but it's going to be, like I said, I think it will be a kind of humiliating for him, because I feel he will be leaning towards much more towards Europe again. In fact, I'm seeing European laws, some of the European laws reinstated, and certainly not an ending of the our dependence on the European laws. You know, I mean, I see them. We're not going to chuck that out. You know, it's going to be the opposite. I feel it's moving more towards European laws, which is not going to be popular because people aren't happy with that idea. Let me just get a few of your questions, and I'll pick from some of these here. I've got quite a few come up. You see. Oh, that was interesting. You spotted on the drones there, I see. Actually, that's what I was. Are they part of the Russian thing? I think there is the Russian thing behind that, definitely. That's quite an interesting one, isn't it? Racheal Reeves, her and Keir Starmer, I think, are extremely hated by people already, aren't they? It doesn't take many. It doesn't take a psychic to tell you that Keir Starmer hasn't got long in power. I feel he will be drawn from power, and with him, she will go as well, because Racheal Reeves is taking a kamikaze attitude, the typical Labour sort of tax and spend type of attitude. They promise, they say, well, there's not going to be any more tax increases. They said that before they were elected. Well, we're not going to tax the working man, but we'll tax you in every other way, and you'll still take the money out of your pocket. So I'm seeing a serious issue with Keir Starmer. And like I said, I also feel there's something definitely dodgy in the background of Keir Starmer's life. I mean, there has, since I made that first recording that you saw earlier, there has been speculation and whatever is, but there's something more to it than just his sexual orientation. I think there's something there with that. But like I said, I felt as if there's something else. Love child. Is he transvestite? I mean, he's a strange wooden character to me, and we don't know him. And I feel there's something. Now, I can't claim that. I've got no evidence to prove that. So it's my opinion here, I suppose you could say. But I'm seeing something very wrong around him in terms of, wrong in terms of, that deceiving the public about the real nature of who he is. I mean, people can have their choices about what they want to be. We all agree that. But I feel as if there's something about him. This perhaps where some of this censorship mentality is coming in, because he doesn't want people to talk about him and what he's like and what he is as a person. The NHS, I feel, will obviously going to pour money into it again. They're going to have to pour money into it, because that's one of the things that they've talked about. That is a promise I think they will keep, and I feel that will happen. But it's not going to solve the problem. I mean, a lot of people are very upset with the Labour Party at the moment. They've tumbled in the polls. People hate them because of the tax increases and things, and they will pay the price for that. But on the positive side, Labour government are the only type of government that can really take on the idea of reforming the NHS, because if any other government was to come and do that, they'd be claimed to be capitalist pigs that want privatisation. So the Labour's the only ones that can work on it. I think they will make some advances with it. So probably will have a better NHS at the end of it. But at what cost? How much money is going into that? And our problem there is not so much the NHS, is it? It's more about we have too many people in the UK to support who are taken from the NHS. We've obviously got our own people. We've got new people coming into the country by the millions, and we've got people. Only a few people have paid for it. I mean, I've been a working person all my life. I don't know what your position is, but I've always put money. My money's obviously been supporting the NHS. Hopefully, I won't get too ill in life. I keep myself quite fit. I don't smoke. I do yoga and the rest of it. So hopefully I won't be much of a drain, and the extras that I put in will help others who maybe haven't been able to work through their life, or have more illnesses, or disabled, or like my grandson have type 1 diabetes, or they're more of a drain on the system. So there has to be a certain number of people supporting it. But the problem is we have so many pouring into the country now. And I think immigration is obviously going to be one of the things ahead, which nobody's talking about now. Have you noticed how it's all gone very, very quiet on the whole idea of immigration at the moment? So it seems to have a very quiet press about it. And yet we see in Italy, for example, their whole idea of doing things and sending people to Albania to be processed, that's fallen through. Europe said no to it, and that's kind of failed. Sweden have come down with quite draconian methods now. They're saying we don't want any migration, let alone illegal migration. We're full up. We're going to try to stop all migration. And I think that's really the only way you can stop it. Just literally stop the whole lot and say, well, we'll take some more people when we're ready, and sort the people that are here. But can you see Keir Starmer and his lot doing that? They're the new Joe Biden, you know, they open borders, and similar ideas in many ways. What's happening with France is not working. The idea of saying we'll beat the gangs, it's not working. So I'm seeing, and Rwanda didn't work, did it either? And we still got hotels chock-a-block with people. So I'm seeing this as a major, major problem still for the UK. It's a growing problem. We've brushed it under the carpet, and I feel it's going to be one of the things that's going to bring the biggest sort of problems for the UK in the way ahead, and for Europe as well, because it's an unaddressed problem. And as people look to America and you see what will happen there, and you'll start to see the country trying to come back to being the America it was, I feel that we're going to see a popular movement here to want this, a popular movement to leave the ECHR, you know, the European rights rules and things, all that. They'll be wanting to pull back on that. The public will want it, even though the media don't want it, and even though the Labour government won't want that. And I feel that there will be calls over 2025 to stop all migration completely. And I predict that we're going to see serious problems, marches. We had a few last year. I feel that's just the tip of the iceberg, because I'm seeing, you know, riots for this, and also because we're going to see a slip in the wages. People are going to there's going to be a wage crisis. People are going to want bigger wages. We're going to start seeing money being poured into the wrong areas for wages. We're going to be appeasing all the people that work for the government by giving them wage increases, but not the people in the private sector not getting wage increases. We're going to see all sorts of problems. If they get a wage increase, why can't I have a wage increase? And that's going to create, as soon as you start to get a society where there's a mixed group of people who feel that one's getting more than the other, or one's taken away from you, and you're getting more wages than me, or you shouldn't be here, we're going to get all sorts of conflicts. And I feel that's going to be the major problem in the way ahead. And this is why I feel reform is going to boom. It's going to boom, like it or not. I'm not saying you should vote for any of these people, but it's going to happen, and it's going to become a very, very difficult situation, like I said. And I even see that's a possibility of, you know, somebody being shot at with all this. So we're going to see strikes, and I feel we're going to see rubbish on the streets. That's another one. We're going to see strikes and rubbish on the streets, a bit like the Callaghan years. I'm seeing that again. So what else have we got here now? It's other thing. Rees-Mogg, I felt, might move to reform, as indeed I mentioned. I felt that others would shift there as well. So I feel Rees-Mogg will shift to reform. They're going to see a lot of Conservatives moving to reform, because Kemi Badenoch will not pull the Tories together. That's all going to fall apart. And one of the other major problems we're going to see ahead is going to be homelessness, but homelessness because of repossessions. People buying houses not being built quick enough to be able to get the market straight again. And I'm seeing house prices and mortgages getting out of control, and a lot of people losing their homes. And very, very sad it will be too to see that. We're going to see new broadcast laws coming in as well, things to stop YouTube and the rest from being able to be platforms for people just to speak ideas. There's going to be lots more restrictions on that. And so I feel there's a lot of problems ahead, and a lot of resentment I feel towards Keir Starmer particularly, and he will go in 2025. It doesn't mean the Labour Party will go, because I've said about that before, he'd be replaced. But I think people see him as being a hypocrite. You know, he'll have they'll spend 30 billion a year, for example. The world's going to make 30 billion a year. They're going to be spending with that COP26 business, where they're going to be giving to developing countries from the developed nations of the world. And it means that we've got in this country where people are going to be saying, why are we sort of pushing everybody else's agenda? What about our own country? And I think that Starmer, for example, he too, we look at these huge numbers that get pushed around of money and things. I mean, he earns £167,000 a year, but he can't afford to buy his own clothes. You know, we see hypocrisy, we see lies, we see everything being fudged. And people, you can fool people some of the time, but you can't fool them all of the time, as they say, you know. And I feel that there's going to be serious political and social unrest over these things. There's going to be a lot of people calling out for major change. And I see you just put there, you know, do you see people fighting on the streets because of the influx of immigration? Yes, I do. I feel that is going to happen. Right. I see this one too. I didn't know that's happened. Does that happen today? Jeremy Clarkson's been arrested. What will happen with him? I didn't even know he'd been arrested. Am I out of touch with this? But he's the sort of person that they go for, outspoken. And we need people outspoken on all sides of the agenda. We need free speech. We need debate. And people asking here, I see about, will Britain halt the migration influx? And it won't happen at the moment. It won't happen. I think you're not going to get it with what we've got at the moment, with the politics in place at the moment, I'm afraid. Let's come back. These are some of the starred ones. Let's come back to some of your live comments here now, guys, and just see what you've got here. So, yeah, this is another serious issue, isn't it? Because the Chagos Islands, which I'd never heard of before, a part of Mauritius, of course. And what a mad thing to do, to give that away when you've got American bases and British bases there, and the Chinese dying to get in there, because from the Chagos Islands, you can get right up to Afghanistan and Taiwan or wherever you want. You've got a major staging place it's like a huge aircraft carrier for the military, and then just give it away. That's what the Labour did before, didn't they? With the they did that before with the countries of Rhodesia and all the rest of it. All that was just give everything away without sorting things out in the first place. There's a mad thing to do. I think that's going to be reversed. I feel that's going to be reversed, and I feel that the Americans are going to put such a lot of pressure on for that we're going to see a change of that. It's not going to happen. It's going to reverse. What you're saying here, we're getting very political all of a sudden. I'm sorry, I've been quite outspoken with what I've said here, because partly opinion coming through, of course, sometimes, but also what I feel and what I see. And, you know, often populism is the only way to save Britain. Wake up all those around you. It's either populism or socialism. Yeah, it's a shame we seem to have to think like that, Gloria. It's a bit like that in a way. It's between again, it's extremes. Lord Ali has something on Starmer. I met Lord Ali and I knew him a little bit on the Big Breakfast, and frankly, he's a lovely man. And I would never say anything negative again, because when I knew him, he's certainly a lovely man. But I don't think he would have anything to threaten Starmer with, but he might know something that we don't. And I think he would be a man that would keep he would not say. Of course, we're going to see farmers. We've got the farmer strikes happening here already, and I don't see that settling down. Do you? I mean, what's your comments, guys? Generally, I mean, if you come to the show later on, let's have your comments on all these things. Yeah, you asked what's happening with the farmers, because with the farmers, I feel that's going to go on and on. He's not going to give in on that, because farmers vote Tory and people in those areas vote Tory. So we might as well clobber them. And if you look at the way these taxes have been going out, it's almost like a revenge tactics on who you vote for. But it's going to backfire. And the farmers I see tractors all the way through London, right the way through 2025. They're not going to sort it out in 2025, and the public will be behind this. And the other thing, house building, taking our countryside and farms as well. Thank you, Kay Wood. I mean, that's another problem, isn't it? Because one of the ways to kind of boost an economy very quickly is often to either bring in thousands and millions of immigrants, because suddenly that short term, it gives a boost to an economy. And similarly, building programs can also boost an economy quite quickly, but they can be also very destructive. We only need to look at what was done in the 1960s. We only need to look at what was done under Harold Wilson and the properties now that are rotting shells that we all look at in horror. And we're going to see cheap building. And I only need to look, and you probably need to look out your windows, and you can see, if you live near countryside, that some of the most beautiful and pristine areas of our country is being destroyed. I don't think building our way out of problems is the way to do it. Why haven't we got enough houses? We haven't got enough houses because there's too many people here. And the same is happening in other countries like Sweden. Too many people, and it creates problems. And you can't build your way out of it. It creates more problems than it solves, I feel. So I think there's a lot of short-sightedness here that's going on in the world, isn't it? You know. So anything else that I've done most of my prediction bits that I felt I wanted to do. Yeah, I think I'm pretty much there now, guys, actually, because we could go on forever, and I'm sure we will. Oh, the royal ones, perhaps a little bit on the royal family too, because that was another thing I saw, actually. Now, I'm not going to make any predictions about the illnesses of Kate and Charles, because I don't. That's not fair, particularly since we've already sort of. How do I take this one off the screen? Can't take off. I don't want to make predictions about known illnesses because it's not fair, but I did get a feeling that Charles this year won't actually do it, but I feel there'll be talk about him abdicating. Now I get the sense that Charles wants to see a smooth transition of the throne. And although I don't see him actually abdicating, I feel him talking about the possibility of doing an abdication. And that might also tie in with these ideas. If you look at my royal predictions, which is separate, and I kind of will probably put all the royal stuff on one video later, but Harry coming back to the UK, I feel there will be a breakup with Harry and Meghan. Harry will eventually come back to the UK. And that may be also part of the smoothing out process of sorting out the monarchy. Because I feel as if I said at the beginning that Charles would have a short reign, right? And you remember right back when I predicted the Queen would die, I said that Charles would follow with a short reign. At that time, we didn't know he had cancer. But I feel it might be a short reign because he may retire and abdicate at some stage. So that would be an interesting one. Anyway, I think I'll leave you with that last thought there before we finish today. So thanks all of you who have been supporting me with this. Lots of you, lots of these questions that I think worked out because some of you have been patrons and some of you have been members of the site. Thanks. I've been taking your questions, answering some of them when I can, interacting with you where I can. But some of those questions have also been from you guys out there, and thank you for that. So if you want to become a patron, go and have a look in the below, and you can join and support the channel and help me and Jane with our work. And we're going to see you again on Friday, because we'll be on again live Friday. Okay, thanks for everybody for joining us. See you soon. Bye for now. If you look back at my earlier predictions, and in particular the predictions I made on the newspaper, the Sun's website, I did actually say on there, the actual words were, there will be a flu epidemic linked to bioterrorism.
And my thoughts are that Liz Truss will make it to the final, be the next PM. I think she will actually have a final battle between her and Rishi Sunak. We've not seen the full end of Boris Johnson either, I tell you. But Rishi Sunak actually will eventually, I feel, be the next leader of the Conservatives. So I think there's going to be a few conflicts that Britain's going to be drawn into, including I think Russia is going to take some moves against Ukraine. I think she will make it past her platinum jubilee, which comes up this year. But I think after that, we'll see a sudden and quick deterioration in the Queen's health. And I think we might lose the Queen towards the end of 2022. There's going to be a huge backlash from over the Netflix programs and screening, because I feel it comes out at a bad time. Charles will come to become King Charles, but his reign, I feel, will be short. I said that Prince Charles would be hit by an egg. And of course, there it is, all in the press today. The marvellous person she is. She does something extraordinary. That could even put her life a little bit at risk with the way she did this. Okay.
Is there something also there that's not been spoken about fully? Did they also discover something with Kate that wasn't quite right?
A huge swarm of people knocking the doors of Europe and America. And I feel that Ukraine conflict is going to be a kind of a grinding conflict that goes on and on. I also feel that there's something going to happen in the Middle East as well. I feel as if there's going to be a sudden and unexpected thing happen in the Middle East. So I feel they're going to take it into their own hands, and I feel we're going to get a strike from Israel. This is going to be one of the significant things in 2023.
I've said it before and I say it again. I feel Israel, with the help from the USA, will strike the Iranian nuclear facilities.
I said that there would be an earthquake that would shake New York.
At this time, I've been sensing that for a while that there's going to be a big earthquake of some sort. And this could well come up during April period.
I'm seeing a bridge collapsing, actually the whole infrastructure of it going.
I predict something very dark happens to President Joe Biden. He's been pulled from power, sacked, as it were, and quite close to the election time. But I kind of sense it's more to do with illness, perhaps, senility, and people stopping him because of that. So it could even be that a new candidate will run for the presidential nominee. I predict that Trump will win the November 2024 election. And I feel very strongly that the black vote is going to move towards Trump. See him as a sort of a bit of a cool guy. I can't see Trump being put in jail, despite what they're throwing at him. I can't see a jail sentence with him. But I get the feeling one of the candidates has an attempt on the candidate's life. Could there have been a plan to assassinate either him or Trump, perhaps? There's going to be an assassination attempt on Trump, I think. And that will fail, but he might maybe get wounded or something like that.